Welcome to the Chromatic Connection, a space where vibrant minds collide and the hue of human expertise blend into something extraordinary. I'm your host, Fatima Al Shirawi, and every week we dive into a kaleidoscope of ideas, stories, and wisdom shared by experts across industries. Diverse mind meets and ideas shine in full color. Today, I will take you through my life's vibrant chapters represented by colors that reflect my experiences, struggles, triumphs. Sit back, relax, and hear my story. The colors of childhood. So I describe this as a bright yellow. I associate my early life with the color bright yellow. It represents joy, warmth, and the sunshine surrounding me as a child. Growing up in Dubai, UAE, I had moments filled with laughter, family gatherings, and the love of my community. The memories that I reflect on and the joy and the innocence that I experienced was very lovely because growing up in UAE, we had a lot of sense of love of family and love of community. So it was very common when I grew up in the 80s that we all lived next to each other. So we all lived with near or with our grandparents, our cousins. So we lived in one house with three houses where it was my grandmother and my uncle and my cousins. And imagine every day was basically a fun party with so many cousins. And we had adventures and we played outdoors. And it was always a very loving environment that I grew up in. And the key influences that I had, whether it was from my family or actually from the leaders at the time. So I grew up in the era of Sheikh Rashid, Allah yarhamah. And for me, Sheikh Rashid meant something very special because I grew up listening to a lot of stories of how his ambition was, the vision he had for Dubai, how he treated people, how he had such amazing moments, which were teachable moments, I would say, for me as a child. And one of the key things that I remember my father always told me about Sheikh Rashid, that he was a very fair man, and he always said, make your work speak for your success. And that is the motto that I have always used when it came to my success and my career, that you don't have to share with the world what you're going to do. You don't have to boast about your successes. Your success itself and your work itself represents your success. And the values that I learned, honestly, from, I would say, my parents and grandparents was stories of resilience, stories of strong moral values, especially when it came to how you treated people, especially when it came to be generous. Because one thing that my grandmother always taught me, that you always have to honor what God gives you. So if you were privileged, your duty was to help. Your duty was to use this privilege that you have to make this world a better place. I was very lucky, actually, to have such wonderful role models growing up. Interesting thing that I would say I had maybe as a child, challenges that I came across was when I was 7 years old, I was sick. I had meningitis, which actually almost took my life. So at that time, when I was 7, I didn't know that I actually had a fatal illness that had struck me. The only thing I remember, we had gone to the beach. I came back and I had like severe headache, and everybody, of course, like said, most probably it's a sunstroke. They gave me a Panadol, and it just got worse and worse and worse, to the point like I literally felt my head was going to explode. And then, thank God, they caught it on time. They rushed me to hospital, and at that time nobody even knew what meningitis was, but I was saved by some miracle. And that really, I think, shaped who I was, because maybe at the time I did not know that the severity of what had happened to me. But I remember this was the first time I saw my parents feel so helpless, because for me, my parents were like superheroes, like they could do anything. And at the same time, of course, when in order to treat me, they gave me a lot of cortisone. So I gained a lot of weight, and generally I was a very skinny child. So I gained so much weight, and at that time, I guess, like, there was no emotional intelligence going on in the surroundings. So a lot of the time I was criticized that I was too fat, even though I was like just a 7 or 8-year-old child. And even though they knew I was sick, the body image issues, I think, started at that age, which was sad, because I was a child and I was too much to handle as an emotion. But I would say the adults around me should have been more empathetic, that it was more of a medical condition and so forth. But overall, my experience as a child was wonderful. I was obsessed with art. I loved color. And my way of escaping sometimes the struggles that I was having with my body image was I would just go in a corner, get a bunch of colors and draw, and go into a world that was my imaginary happy place, I would say. So children are very resilient. We have our own way of coping mechanisms, I would say. But overall, it was a wonderful childhood, with beautiful role models and a beautiful sense of family. The color of adolescence, deep blue. As I entered my teenage years, I thought of deep blue. It symbolizes the feeling of introspection, sadness, and the challenges I encountered during that time. I struggled with body images, trapped in my mind with what my identities were, the friendships I had, the mental health struggles that I struggled with. And I would say the specific things that cast a shadow on this period of time, of course, as a teenager, and especially I was a teenager that was very much obsessed with fashion and celebrities, and I loved movies, I loved music. So I was very much, I guess, obsessed with the whole body image and looking beautiful. And even at the time, I would say the role models that we had weren't very healthy looking, because it was during the Kate Moss period when everybody wanted to be super skinny. And as I struggled already with my body image from being a child, and what I went through and how difficult it was losing weight, at this period of time, I guess at that time we never really defined certain mental health issues or certain disorders. But what I then was so focused about, that I was going to be thin, I was going to look beautiful, and this is what made my identity. This is what made people like me, which was actually a very difficult time for somebody this young. And also generally, I mean, it's not even something that was only in that era. People struggle with it even more now because of social media. And I feel very bad for the young girls, the teenagers now, with the amount of pressure that they have. Like, we weren't exposed to social media at the time, and our pressure was, I would say, from movies and music videos and, people around us. So there was always a sense of like comparison, I guess, at that time. What I started to notice that it was also a way for me to have like sort of a sense of control. So one thing that is interesting, as I have now studied a lot in psychology, being the youngest of three, always the youngest tries to find a sense of control because they don't have control. Because you always have like older siblings who are like either controlling you or trying to bully you. So you're always like fighting to find your own identity. So for me, I used actually not eating as a sense of control. It's something I could control. It was something that was just for me. And as I went on with this, I didn't feel good inside, but at the same time, this was the way I just moved on with everything. And as I went into my senior year, actually, I had become so thin that it was unhealthy. But the problem was I was getting a lot of compliments around. So that just motivated me even more. And these experiences sort of made me, I guess, more alert of how, as an adult now, I know how damaging this is when you don't have an outlet or a support system or even knowledge of how to cope with such a thing. And then after, like, that was one major struggle, I would say, as a teenager. The second was also building up sort of your identity through your friends. So the type of friends you had, and that's the time you explore. You have so many different personalities, and actually, I liked growing up in a public school because you learn to mix with different people from different places, different backgrounds. And it taught me to honestly sometimes appreciate the life I had. It taught me also learning different cultures from people, understanding their stories, being empathetic. So a lot of that actually built a lot of my social skills when it came to my friends. And overall, I had wonderful friends. And at the same time, I told you that earlier that I had such a big family. So a lot of my times were like with my cousins, which I enjoyed. And the one thing that I can say that I would say was a great support was my elder sister, because she was very close to me. So she was a person that maybe sometimes I could express how I feel, or sometimes I could even see from her experience growing up how she was dealing with the same struggle. So she dealt with things actually in a positive way. So she was a great role model in my coping mechanisms and how to apply it to my life. So overall, I would say that yes, it was hard. Yes, I had a lot of struggles with my self-image, and till this day, sometimes it creeps in a bit. But I guess what they define now is what we define it as body dysmorphia, which no matter how much you look healthy, you still think you feel you need to lose more. But one advice I do have for people going through this body image problem, that always look within. What is the reason you feel you need to be controlling your food? Or what is the need that you have that you feel that hurting yourself would actually make you feel better? So I am very happy that we're at a time where people are open to therapy. So the minute you feel that there are some triggers which you feel are unhealthy behavior, I always advise to go to a therapist and approach it in a healthy way, because you don't need to suffer years of your life addressing such issues, because it's just part of growing up, actually. Color of education, bold green. When I think of my pursuit of education, I see bold green. It represents growth, new beginnings. Studying sociology and marketing was an enormous challenge that came with self doubt, obstacles, like coming from a government school and then going to the US and studying. It was quite a great challenge because I studied everything in Arabic, and I was in an all girls school. And then I was sent to the US to a mixed university. So, so the language was okay. It was pretty good with English and everything, but of course, we didn't have the basis of like we had to do research papers and so forth. That wasn't part of our curriculum at the time. Now, of course, it's available, but at the same time, I would say the cultural shock that I had was, suddenly being in a mixed sort of university, and then the cultural differences. So, as much as my parents are very modern in terms of sending their daughter to study abroad, they're also quite conservative. So, I had to learn to balance out what was part of my tradition, and also accepting a different culture and their traditions, and also embracing learning new things. So, that was quite an interesting chapter. And a very nice new beginning. I truly enjoyed my university life. And the purpose of choosing my field of study was very interesting. So, my journey with choosing my field of study has been quite a story. So, initially, of course, since I loved fashion and design, I wanted to study fashion design in Paris. But at that time, of course, fashion design wasn't a career and an option. And I do come from a family where my father's family are all entrepreneurs and business, and my mother's family are all doctors. So I was the only creative bone that was in this family. And they didn't think that this is something lucrative to do. So we came to a compromise. And I said, okay, I will agree to study marketing, which was a business major. At the same time, it allowed me to sort of explore my creativity. And as I was studying marketing, we also had to take some electives. So I took a sociology class as my elective. And the minute I took my first sociology class, I'm like, I want to do this too. So I started with marketing, and then I decided I want to major in sociology and marketing, which was great because marketing is all about consumer behavior and sociology is all about human behavior and in their environment. So it was extremely complementing. And this was my first degree. And then my dream continued. So I graduated from doing my bachelor's in sociology and marketing. And then I started actually doing my master's in tourism and event management at the time, which was the beginning of Dubai starting with the whole tourism and the festival. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. I should, study that. And as I went into it and I saw what it takes to do events, and you literally would not have a life. I did study it, but I never worked in it. And this was, I would say, the first chapter of my studies. And then I came back and I started working with my father. However, there is a chapter we will be soon talking about, which was sort of my life-changing chapter. And this is what made me pursue what I still wanted to do, which I went back to university and studied fashion design in London College of Fashion. And from there, I entered into the world of color psychology, and I certified as a color psychologist from the Color Effects Institute. So this was my entire journey of education. However, this story and every step I took in studying created a milestone and foundation for the company that I have created today. Now, balancing, I would say, being a student, coping with a new lifestyle, country, culture was very interesting. It gave me a sense of, at the beginning, I was very afraid because everything was so new. And at the same time, it was a struggle. And also at the time here we never had sort of evaluations to see what problems you had academically, so I used to actually blank out whenever I had like multiple choice exams. I don't know why, even though I knew the material. And interestingly, I went to the tutoring center in university, and they're like, have you ever done sort of a diagnostic test to see if you have any learning disabilities? And I was like, no, I've never heard of it. So when I actually did the test, turns out that it was only the approach of how my brain processes information. So the only thing I needed to do was basically read the chapter, write it in my own words as notes, and my brain would then process the information faster. And every time I did that, it was getting better and better, and then my anxiety with multiple choices ended. And exams were no longer sort of my nightmare that I had to. So it was interesting, actually, just like discovering layers and layers of my personality. And I became also very independent. I found out more and more what was my interest. I also found boundaries, so I also knew what I didn't like and how to stand up for myself. So it was very, like, aside from education, it was also a personality discovery and education and social skills and independence. So it was very interesting the first time I had to clean my apartment, learn to get groceries, do laundry, balance bills. All of this was like a new world for me. I was so protected. Everything was taken care of when I was home. So this was very good for me because it truly shaped me and made me very independent for what was to come in my future life. And then the second thing that I feel was also very important was that I discovered what I would say I was passionate about. So while I was studying, my internship was in the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and I was a case manager. So it was very interesting for me because it was a very heavy subject. You were responsible for a person's life, I would say. So as a case manager, I was, of course, only maintaining the files of these missing children. So we had to speak to the police officers, the social workers on the case, sometimes the parents. And it was interesting. They were actually, the technology was fantastic because they used to be, for example, a child was kidnapped when they were 12 and, they didn't find them for years. So there was a simulation that would basically give you an image of this child at every different stages with their ages. So, of course, that's how they would update, announcements for the missing children. And there were some cases that were so heartbreaking. And here is where I really, truly, truly learned to appreciate my life and never, never, ever complain about anything, because there were very heartbreaking stories. And then there were also amazing stories when we would find the children and unite them with their families. So it was a great journey. So when I started actually studying my master's, this is where I actually went to the center and told them that because as a foreign student, you're not allowed to work. So I told them, I'm like, I want to work for you, but can I volunteer? But I do want to continue working with the center. So they were like, yes, we would love you to volunteer. You are really dedicated to what you're doing. And my milestone was I got a certificate of appreciation from the center for the dedication I gave and the passion that I had for this cause. So I truly found, I guess, the social work and passion that I do now started in that stage in my life. And that was, I would say, like my biggest milestone when it came to my journey in university. The color of professional life, strong red. Entering the workforce is associated with strong red. For me, it showed passion, energy, and the intensity of the challenges I faced. In my professional journey, I encountered many challenges. Job-related struggles, such as job search, also identifying if I did want to work for a company or for someone, or did I want to do something myself, and did I want to build something myself. So it was a very interesting journey for me in discovering how I wanted to approach my career. So first, a little bit of background when it came to my career. When I graduated, a year after I graduated, my mother suddenly passed away. And that was a shock because it was sudden, it was in a split second, and I was not prepared for it. And what was interesting is that it was not a choice that I could take, that if I wanted to work or not. Suddenly, I had the entire responsibility of taking care of my family. So I would say my first job and would be taking care of the home, taking care of my father's health, and taking care of my sister. She had a newborn baby at the time, so supporting her, and also supporting also all of us, as in emotionally. And I'm very sort of emotionally in tuned with my emotions, and I always like to learn how to approach different emotions in a healthy way. So of course I did a lot of research of how to cope with such traumas. And so my first job was running the house. And what you learn in running the house is, number one, you learn people management. Number two, you learn crisis management. And number three, you learn how to be dedicated and passionate about what you do. So that was honestly the most difficult job because I didn't get paid for it. Then the second part of my career, I would say, I didn't work for 7 years because I was very dedicated to balancing out our life after my mother passed away, and just getting everything back to what was our new normal, I would say. And at that time, of course, like all my friends were like getting their jobs and focusing on their careers or getting married, having kids. And I sort of skipped all that and went straight to responsibility. So sometimes I always say I've already lived basically being a housewife or being a wife, because that is technically what I was doing, but not being married. And then after that, as I was pursuing my education and my passion, I came back, and once I was done with everything, I started researching the market. And because I studied color psychology and I saw such a great aspect of this science, and it wasn't really applied in the region, so I looked at what was needed in the region. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to pursue this, and I'm going to build something that serves my country, and it's something that's so unique. So I wanted to be the first Emirati color psychologist, and I wanted to serve my country with all the information that I had learned over the years, and that is the objective, that we learn and we explore in order to serve our community, serve our country. So as I researched, I saw that there was a very huge gap when it came to marketing to the region, customer service, creating even products that truly relate to the consumer here and their lifestyle. So I focused a lot of the color psychology on the marketing perspective and the product development. So first, it was more about the personal branding. So a lot of people were coming to me for their own personal branding. And this was also the era where like social media was starting. So everybody honestly is an influencer in some way or the other. So we all have our own personal brand. So it started off with first like image consulting and personal branding. And then as people started discovering it and really enjoying when they did these color sessions, they started enjoying seeing how much more they could do and how strong they were using the right colors and being confident and being able to tackle anxiety, depression, all of this with just using the right colors and knowing your color personality. With word of mouth, it became very popular. And then a lot of luxury brands started contacting me for customer experiences, because this was the stage where no longer an ad or a celebrity was selling the product. People wanted something that they could use in their real life. People wanted these products to be something that was made specifically for them. So here's where we started these beautiful customer experiences, and it explored all aspects of fashion, from clothing to perfumery to makeup to jewelry, and it was always about storytelling, and it was always relating these products to who the person is and how do they use it and how do they make these products like sentimental to them, and how is it something that they even give for generations and generations to their children, grandchildren. So it was all about personalizing things, and that was really a fantastic journey. I was so busy. I lived on a plane and at all times. And I remember in 2019, ironically, I had done my last project and I was coming back from Saudi, and I was like, I don't think I can do one more year of this. And then, lo and behold, COVID came, and I think I was like, I should have been very specific when I said I can't do this anymore. So it was interesting. But then with COVID came a whole other challenge when it came to my career. I basically had to think out of the box, because all my work was all about events, and it was all about even the workshops I used to do was all face to face with people. But ironically, 6 months before COVID, I started thinking, okay, I need to slow down. How do I convert what I make with the events into more of a learning platform? So I had already started working on my digital educational platform. So the minute COVID came, I just had to speed it up from something I was going to do in 6 months, had to be done in literally 1 month. So I started my online workshops. I also went into my humanitarian mode, and I was like, okay, I have great information of how to help people deal with this emotional state that we're in. So I started approaching all the entities that I worked with, from government entities to all the luxury brands I worked with, and I was like, you know what, your customers need? They need right now somebody who can support them with their mental health, with this time we're living. So we actually started doing wonderful color workshops for all of these entities, and I did it all for free because this was the time that I was going to give back to my community, my country, and humanity for that matter. Because this was the time that humanity was super important, and unfortunately we are losing it more and more in this era, which makes me very sad. So overall, I would say this is my journey of my career, and now at this stage, I'm teaching in the university, like introduction to color psychology. So that's another different journey I'm taking as an educator, which is lovely because I love shaping the future of these young generation, and they're so creative, and I learned so much from them. So overall, I guess my career and my journey was really full of passion, and that's why I felt like red really represents this, because it's all about passion, it's all about energy. The color of personal growth, I would say a lovely lavender. Throughout my journey, I've embraced the color of lavender because it symbolizes to me a sense of calmness, healing. I discovered the importance of the relevance of self care, developing and coping with strategies such as mindfulness, meditation, prayer, yoga, also a lot of support groups and therapy session with professionals truly gave me a beautiful sense of personal growth. And this color is also very healing and spiritual to me, because during my difficult time, it kind of gave me a sense of comfort, and it's spiritual to me because actually whenever I was sad and devastated about my mother's death, and I would sit and pray, and I would continuously pray for her soul to be at peace. I would continuously ask God that what can I do to make her happy? What can I do to give her peace? And I always used to strangely be wearing purple. Or I would, and at that time, actually, I was always drawn towards the color purple, because I was exploring myself. I was discovering what I needed to do to feel balanced, because yes, I took care of my family, that gave me comfort, but technically it was also a distraction because I didn't want to deal with my emotions. And personal growth came to me actually during COVID, because all this time, I was struggling with my health, but I was ignoring it. So there came a time that basically I literally couldn't eat anything because I couldn't sustain food. I was losing weight. I was very irritable. And then I discovered that I had diabetes, and I had actually a rare type that is diagnosed as a type 2, but actually the treatment is a type 1. So I had to start getting on insulin. And that also was another journey, because they did not tell me the more insulin you took, the more weight you would gain. And I almost had reached to like 80 kgs, which was crazy. But at the same time, I was feeling so much better. And then slowly, I was learning like how to manage this. And mental health was the most important part of actually treating my type 1 diabetes, because it was all related to stress. It was all related to emotions I had just trapped inside and had not dealt with. And so my doctor told me that you live a very high paced life and you need an outlet. So he suggested that I do yoga and sound bowl. And it was fantastic because the vibration from these sounds truly were opening up these emotions I had kept in. And then I started going to, during COVID actually, because I finally had time, I started going to a therapist and I started working on things I really wanted to work on. And interestingly, actually the story brings it to a full circle. As you know, in every section, I've been mentioning how I struggle with my body image. So during COVID, I was approached to do a master class for a platform. And interestingly, they had given me options, I could film this at any point in time. And at that time, I was 80 kgs. And then I told myself, Fatima, this is the time you challenge yourself to see how you have healed and truly what is your body image. So I knew that when I go on camera, it's going to appear like 5 kgs, even more. So I was technically 85 kgs on screen. So I decided, you know what? It is not how I look, it is what I say. And I am sharing wonderful knowledge with people. And I am going to do this. So I actually did it as a challenge for myself. And at that time also, like the country I had to go film it in was in like level yellow. So it wasn't even so easy for me to enter. And I remember we were so cautious with our masks and all while we were filming. So, but that was a wonderful challenge because I did it. And ironically, my masterclass is the most watched on that platform. And yes, I did have people tell me, don't post these videos. Like now you look so much nicer. Now you're thinner. Don't post this. And I ignored it because you know what? There's nothing wrong with how I look, and the knowledge that I share with people is the most important thing. So what I learned in my journey of self-growth was, number one, make the effort. Put in the time, find the right people that you connect with as mentors, therapists, and also have a very strict system of showing up for yourself and creating an outlet for you, at least to give you a time out from your hectic life. So for me, what I do is every year I find a new hobby or a skill to learn. That is my outlet. Second, I love to travel. That's my outlet. And third, I meditate every Friday. So I do a sound bowl or meditation, which for me is to basically bring together my week and start fresh for the weekend. So find your own sort of way of creating a system. And that's my advice. Just invest in yourself. Thank you to our listeners. And remember that embracing each color of your struggle can lead to something truly beautiful. And that's a wrap on today's Chromatic Connection. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their brilliant palette of insights with us. If this conversation sparks something in you, hit subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who'd love to add more color to their perspective. Until next time, remember, life's too vivid to stay monochromatic.